This is TABcast, brought to you by the Alternative Board,
helping business leaders improve their business for a better life. Welcome to episode 2 of TABcast. We're here today to talk about a subject which is close to every business leader's heart, how to get the best out of people. If you missed episode number 1, which was some great business leaders talking about what their initial challenges and indeed motivations for starting out a business, do have a look at episode number 1. I'd like to say a big thank you to our 3 business leaders who have joined us today. As mentioned, this podcast is brought to you by the Alternative Board. My name is Liam Prendergast and I'm co-owner of the Alternative Board in the Wakefield District. And as we know through peer boards that 70% of our challenges generally come around people. So hopefully today you're going to go away with some great takeaways from 3 business leaders who are all either running successful business teams or supporting other organisations in creating well-performing teams. So let me pass over an introduction to each and every one of you. Sarah, should we start with you? Tell us a little bit about your role and indeed Quest Consulting.
So I'm Sarah Birkinshaw. My company's Quest Consulting Services. We are people experts, so we are HR consultants. And as you quite rightly say, lots of businesses will have issues around the people, whether it's starting with that first employee or building really well-performing teams as businesses grow, and we support that whole journey with them.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Jake, your role and a little bit of an overview of the Hay Group.
Yeah, I'm Jake Alliston. I'm Commercial Director at the Hay Service Group. We are a nationwide ventilation and kitchen extract cleaning contractor. We work with a lot of restaurant chains, hotels, hospitals, and we're obviously a nationwide company with teams up and down the country. So it brings its own challenges based here in Wakefield.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And last but not least, Simon, a little bit of an overview of your role at Samson's.
Yes, so Simon Banks, I'm currently the MD at Samson Products Limited, also partner with Liam at Tab Wakefield. We've been in business 13 years now, have a team of about 20 shop floor and staff.
Great stuff. Once again, thank you all for being here. What's really interesting is whenever we get to speak to business owners, there is always a challenge of around good quality recruitment and matching skills to a particular role. But we're not here today to talk about recruitment. What I'm keen to understand is what hints and tips do you have about building effective teams, either within your own organisation or indeed, in your case, Sarah, helping and supporting your customers to build effective teams? So let me start by asking is, in your thoughts, what is an effective team? How do you know you've got to a stage where a team is performing well? Sarah?
Well, I think for me, and I can use my own team as well as others as a comparison, it's, some of that is that gut feeling in that you have got an engaged team that really buys into the direction you want to move with your business. They are working towards the same goals as you. And a result of that, what you're going to see is performance is good. Probably they are working pretty independently. So, there's not that element of micromanagement having to be taking place. But some of that is just that feeling of culture, isn't it? You see in the workplaces, people will just describe that as it's just a nice place to be. And I know people say in our environment, my team, I would go on record as saying, one of the best I've ever worked with, to be fair to them. But it's really relaxed, but everybody is 100% behind where we want to be, and they're a part of that journey. So I think for me, it's not only the performance, it's the feel that it gives of having a really positive culture.
We'll certainly come back to this word culture a little bit more in the podcast. Simon, a successful team, how do you know you're there?
I don't think you ever are. I think it's a constant journey and a constant battle. You can have with a team of 20 at the moment. We've probably got the best group of people we've ever had, but over the last 12 years that can vary, and it's very, very hard to get everybody working together and on board and fitting the culture of the business at the same time. There's always an issue with somebody, but I think retention is key to that. So creating an environment where people want to stay, making sure that there's opportunity for them, making sure we've got training and coaching opportunities for our staff and our shop floor people. But I think the thing for me, it all starts with values. So if you know the value, recognising the values of your business and what you're working to, what values you're working to, and making sure that when you employ at any level, that those values are known and that the people you employ fit with the values that you want to promote in your business. I think that's where you start, really, for me.
Jake, secret of creating a high-performing team, and how do you know when you're there?
I think for me, it's not just driven by yourself. I think when you start the business off, it's very much driven by you. But I think when you get to a certain level, especially in our sort of service-based business, it's about giving people the tools to be able to go and lead people within but lead them in the right way that you've set, like Simon says, the culture of what you want to do. But then I think the most successful thing for me is when the decisions are being made without you and the business is running and they're making great decisions, not with your input. And I think for me, we're starting to get to that point, and it's really interesting that not just the senior leadership in our business, but the leaders on the ground as well, who are serving our customers, that they're making the right decisions on a night-by-night basis to in theory, deliver what's great for the customer.
Each of you have mentioned this word culture. Mm-hmm. What is it, and how do you build on it?
I think for me, we all start the business generally because either you've worked for somebody or you have a vision of delivering something better than someone else. And I think generally a culture is built on the values you set yourself inside and what you believe in. And then it sort of builds from there, really. And so what are my personal traits I want to do and then bring onto the business? But then you've also got your sort of, as you grow bigger, it's what your senior leadership team means, what your whole business can then mean to the customer. I think, I think it evolves and does, but culture is always one, I think, sits back to sort of what your personal traits are as a leader, I believe.
Sarah, you must have worked with many different organisations with many different culture strands.
Yeah.
You know, in your words, what is culture? And again, how do you know that you have embedded a positive culture within an organisation?
I think taking a step back, some of the issues we maybe see as businesses grow, especially businesses that have grown quickly, is that actually taking the time out as early as you can in your business to really map out, you know, what is the culture you want to create? What is it you want to be famous for? But more importantly, one thing we talk about all the time is thinking about that employee experience and journey. You know, what do you want them to feel when they're at work? How do you want people to go away from work? You know, you want people coming in looking forward to a Monday, not on a Sunday night dreading having to come into the workplace. And I think what we see lots of is businesses that have had that quick growth. And actually what's forgotten is getting those foundations in of thinking, what do you want to build upon? And it's more about getting bums on seats or people into roles just to do the job. And that's the panic. So I think for me, you know, culture should flow through everything that you do as a business. It's how you deal with your customers. It's how you deal with the staff and your employees that you've got. And I agree with Jake completely. That has to flow through from the top right down. And I think sometimes if it's seen as, oh, we need to have a vision or values because that's a tick box exercise, that doesn't really feel authentic and it doesn't flow through what your teams ultimately behave like. And the amount of business owners we talk to that will have frustrations, you know, it's that they're just not doing things the way that we want them done. And actually what isn't clear is the communication, as Simon mentioned, on what is that culture. You know, what is it you're trying to create? And that all stems around what are the values, you know, what are the things that are important to you?
Where do you think the culture gets set? Do you think it should be set in a larger organisation? Is it set by the owner or is it set by the senior leadership team? At what level, as a business develops and evolves, at what level does the culture get set? And the values as well. Where does that come from the leader or from the senior management team?
Well, do you know, I'd argue to some point, if you want a really positive culture, that comes from everybody in the organisation. I think the values have to be set initially by your senior leadership, because you've got to decide as a business owner, part of a senior leadership team, what is it you do want to be famous for? How do you want your business to conduct itself in the marketplace with customers or employees? But actually, the best cultures are those that are inclusive, they're driven by the people that are in them. And certainly I remember as I started growing my team, I shared with them the vision of what I wanted and what was important to me in terms of values. But actually, they were the ones that created what does that culture look like. And we still do that. It's that, and that is your engagement piece of how do you really get them on board to buy into what you're talking about.
You've really reminded me there, just listening to you, Sarah, about a definition that I heard several years ago around culture. And a very simple definition of culture is, how do your people feel on a Sunday night prior to coming to work on a Monday morning? Or what are they feeling? Are they fear anxious? Is there a level of dread of coming in? Or is there a level of positivity? So again, a definition that I really remember a few years ago is, how do your people feel on a Sunday? That often defines what your culture is.
I think for me, from a culture point of view, I think when the people you see every single day, your office people, area managers in our case, who are generally spoke to all the time, I think you find it a lot easier to motivate them people. But from a service business point of view, with remote workers, it's always a challenge for us. Is how do we ensure, yes, we've got these vision and values that we want to work for. How does that get to them and touch them? And that's a real challenge. And for me, you've just got to you as a team or as a manager, as a leader, not just from Simon's point from the top. I believe it's also the guys, the area managers in our case, who are talking to the site guys, and then even into the supervisors, to their engineers who are working for them. It's making sure that they're talking about, well, actually, we've got to deliver for this customer and ensure that we're talking.
So that's the culture pyramid, isn't it? So if you look at a pyramid shape and you've got the leader at the top, you can't circumvent a layer of management. It's got to come and filter down at every level.
100%.
If the leader tries to circumvent middle management or junior management by doing that, it never works.
No, and I don't think you can influence them either. I think you've got to comes back to the recruitment piece. If you recruit the right people in, who generally have similar values, yes, they're different personalities and different traits, but as long as you sort of believe in that same thing, I think it's a lot easier.
What do you do when you've got somebody in your organisation that doesn't fit from a cultural point of view? What happens then? So let's say you've got somebody in your senior management team who doesn't quite fit the culture and isn't helping that to drip down to the other members of staff. What happens then?
I think it's a real challenge, but I think it comes back to that recruitment piece. If when in the interview, in the talk, and your that's a real stickler, is your culture and how you believe everyone should act in your business. I think, to me, one person can ruin a business, and it is quite scary that could happen. But I really think you just got to deal with that. And if they don't fit, if they understand it and can change and come into your culture, I don't think you can change a culture for just one person. I believe that the full culture has got to be about the business and about everybody within that organisation.
It's interesting there that a negative culture kind of can permeate through a business a lot quicker than what it can do to take a positive culture.
It can. I would say, though, just going back to mentioning recruitment, actually, excuse me, building a culture starts before you've even recruited. So if you think, we're in a society now, aren't we, where everything is instantly online. If you were going to apply for a job, people check out the social media of your 100%. Business, the website of your business, and actually your values, the culture you want to create, should be really obvious even at that stage, which then helps you tick a box of the people applying to your business probably resonate with what they're seeing out there in the media anyway. And I think if you are in a situation where you've maybe made those recruitment choices, one thing I always talk a lot about is investing in management training to make sure that culture is actually embedded from an early stage with them. Part of their induction process, if you like, should be that they understand the bones of the business before they're starting managing the nuts and bolts with that. But I think if you found yourself in that situation, doing something is actually the positive. The amount of businesses I see that almost allow that behaviour just to continue without addressing it because they might feel uncomfortable with having those conversations with somebody senior in a business. But actually, if they understand the why it's important, then obviously in our world, there are ways and means of making sure that there is a process to follow to look at how you change or modify their behaviour so it's in line with the culture you want to create. And you're right, somebody that might be toxic in a business, then you have to address that pretty quickly. Yeah. And if they're not the right person, manage that in the right way.
I believe that social media piece is a great point, because I think a lot of people before coming to work for you choose to work for you before they even come to the... So we invest heavily in what we look like, I believe, compared to probably the industry. Our marketing team's fantastic. How we want to look, the vision of what we want to do, and how we portray that, not just to potential customers, but also to the team and even new people coming on board. Trying to make a cleaning business sexy is very, very, very difficult, but we try and make a good job. So hopefully we can bring the right people into the business.
Well, the recruitment market's different now, isn't it? Long gone are the days where candidates sell themselves to you. You have to sell yourself to them to attract the right people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I want to touch on a little bit of, we all work in businesses which are occasionally seasonal, when it's tough and there's a lot of output needed. Likewise, when there's quieter times. I'm keen to get your thoughts on how do we maintain a positive team environment when output results are critical in a set period of the year? How do we go about maintaining that level of motivation when you're expecting more and more from your people? Jake?
I think for me is people come to work for money. Having a fair wage and chances of earning the right money for the job you do, I think that's got to be key. Above market value, I always believe that is where you need to be, and you will bring great people into the business. Luckily for us, a lot of it's planned maintenance in our business, so it's generally mapped out through the year. But if we've got large projects and things like that, sharing the well dones, a lot of our team engineers will post on social media. They'll get rewarded for that. We do little bits around vouchers and things to take the families and for meals, or for example around this time purchasing presents and things like that. But I don't think it's all just monetary. It's that little ring around the being recognised for what you do, and also the guys being in the trenches with you, myself, ops directors, and in sort of the relationship managers and area managers in our business that are with you on the ground when times are tough, and we'll be the guys in the office till 6-7 o'clock at night when you're working hard as well.
Simon, when times are tough, how do you continue to get the best out of the team?
Well, I think the most important thing certainly in our sector is you need to pay people well. People do come to work for pay, so you've got to pay people well, and then I think where it works in our business, we get peaks and troughs in demand. So when it goes quiet, we're a little bit easier. Things slow down a little bit. The pace of work drops, and when it gets busy, people have to up the pace. But it comes back down to the same thing again. It's having the right people in your team. So we've got a middle management team at our company that I 100% believe run the business like it's their own. So we've had situations where we've had shortages of people on the shop floor due to sickness, and we've had middle management go out and work on a machine on the shop floor. Isabella, for example, the other day was on a drill. So the bookkeeper was on a drill putting holes in pieces of wood. So having the culture where everybody is working to the same end goal is key, and employing people that accept there are going to be times when it's easy and times when it's hard and it's tough and you have to really work hard. We're going through a period of that at the moment, so it's our peak season at the moment. Yeah, this afternoon all our staff are off on company time going bowling. So I think if you create a culture where there's a bit of give and take, so when we need them to give, there are times alternatively when they can take, when they get a bit of flexibility, a bit of free time. It is give and take. You can't expect people to work hard all of the time and not get anything back in return.
Important to note that whether drilling holes or bowling, all health and safety guidelines are being met. Absolutely. Sarah, again, challenging times within organisations.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on how that business leader continues to build team momentum, team engagement when output, when production is needed, when that extra 10% effort is required. How do organisations continue to have that great levels of motivation and engagement in their staff? Your thoughts?
Do you know, I think one of the key things is the businesses that I see do that well are the ones that are actually quite honest in communicating the importance of peak times. If they are, struggling with whatever challenge, and there may be several, that the staff are aware of that and on board. I think sometimes you're almost frightened to share some of the dips or, the troughs and challenges in a business, thinking that, that might create instability or people might be worried. Actually, what we generally find is it's the polar opposite. It's when employees don't understand what's going on behind the scenes, that they aren't actually 100% behind the business. And a really good example of that, I worked with a business recently that, had significant financial challenges. And so they were really struggling. And we had a really honest conversation with the business owners because it was so important that output stayed up there, that production was still up to really good levels. And actually, they were trying to hold back a lot of information, which you can understand because you don't want people to be jumping ship thinking things aren't going well. But actually, at the counter, it was being counterproductive because actually their employees just felt that there was some, they're perceptive, they're not idiots, so that they didn't feel like something was quite right, and the message that we were being told wasn't 100% genuine. And actually, what really turned that round to have their staff behind them was a really frank and honest conversation about why they needed their support. And I think if you are flexible and there is that give and take, and I think, saying the thank yous, and there's something simple, it doesn't always have to be big financial rewards, but if your staff feel valued at the point where you really need their loyalty and support and help, if you're honest with them, you will 100% get that payback.
And that thing about transparency with staff, if your people don't, if you're not transparent with your people about where the business is, they will perceive where it is.
They will.
And make assumptions that could well be wrong, which can impact on morale and output. So I think it's key for me in our business that we translate exactly where the business is and what position we're in to all our staff, from senior management right down to the labourers on the shop floor. They know what's expected and what's needed and exactly where the business is. It stops all the worry, takes all the worry away from them.
Does. People will always paint a worse picture
than
the reality.
I think for me as well, in peak times and low times as well, is from a leadership personality point of view, if you can be the same leader in the hard times and the bad times, which is very, very hard. It's the old analogy of the duck in the water, isn't it? If you can stay calm on the top, but your legs are going 10 to the dozen underneath. Look, don't get me wrong, I don't think everyone gets it right, and there's frustration and challenges and real highs and real lows. But if you can stay balanced throughout that, I think it settles the nerves of the team.
Yeah, it's consistency, isn't it?
Yeah, consistency is key in anything, isn't it? I think even if you can get 80%, 75% out of your team every single day, I think that's where we need to be.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about what a high-performing team looks like without putting too much of a negative spin on things. Certainly in my experience, one of the challenges every business will talk about is the need for improved communication and how that communication, if it's lacking, has an adverse effect on team engagement. Communication, what's best practice in terms of how you communicate the good and the bad news to teams, once again, to maintain a good level of morale? Sarah?
I think you've got to plan communication well. So it's not something that should be an off the cuff. So especially if you are communicating less favourable news. So if you are in a time where you might have struggles or challenges in the business, it's really thinking about who your audience is, what message it is you want to land with them, and what result you want to get. And quite often, when that's well planned and executed, and I think it's also thinking about how your workforce operate, like you were saying, if you've got a remote workforce versus a team sat in an office or a factory or a warehouse, it's how you're going to get the same message across to them. And I think one of the big mistakes we see quite often is almost that lack of planning and thought to the message you're going to give, because that is when it can be dangerous. And you absolutely don't want to turn staff off to that spot or be jumping ship or panicking that a situation is worse than it really is. So I think for me, it's doing that. And I guess I'll go back to my soapbox, I suppose, that I get on all the time is a big part of communication is also making sure that the managers within your business actually understand the messages that have to be delivered, because you as a business owner, especially with larger organisations, might cascade a message, but it's how that ripple effect gets talked about through your teams. And I think, we come across so many businesses, especially small businesses that have grown over time, where they don't actually invest in training the managers. And, many stats come out that will tell you around 80% of staff that leave businesses leave because of poor managers, not because of poor businesses. Yeah. And for me, line managers, whether it's a team leader, supervisor, right up to your senior management team, have such a big impact on engagement and how communication and messages are received, that failing to invest in them is such a dangerous chance to take, I think. So it would be great to see businesses investing more.
Yeah, I think for me, I think you can over communicate in some way. Like we have a lot of remote guys, and how do we keep that message very clear? Once a month newsletter is the overall news on the business. Not going to lie, generally it's pretty positive news. We try and keep that to a positive, whether that's recognition for the guys on the ground who've passed certain audits, whether that's business, we've won new business, new starters, things like that. But I think just from the sort of the old Chinese whispers sort of thing, I think you've got to sort of, if that message is short and sharp, generally it's going to get to the end pretty much near close. If the message is massive, generally when it gets to the end, it's very diluted and not well. So I think comms is one, and we try and keep it. We use one system for the whole team, and we try and keep that message just to that platform. Instead of having different types of platforms we work on, and we try and keep that message to that one platform, and then hopefully the message doesn't get
that consistency of message.
Yeah, that dilutedness.
Simon, the importance of effective communication within the teams in order to drive engagement. Your thoughts?
From a manufacturing point of view, we find the best way we're communicating with our team day to day, because we've got daily targets, daily outputs to hit. So there's a lot of day to day communication, but the sort of the more of the broader picture of where the business is and what the plans for the business are going forward. We're just regular team meetings, and that's getting everybody into a room and talking about where the business is, and we open that up to them for suggestions, particularly from an operational point of view, from the shop floor. What suggestions have they got for improvements? What would they like to see? What benefits would they like that they're not getting already? Like the team days that we do, the social days. So I think it's a two-way thing. You need to listen to them as much as we need them to listen to us, and providing them with that platform is really important. It's a space where they can come and talk about whatever they want to talk about, what issues they've got on the shop floor, what things are maybe not working quite as well as they'd like them to.
Yeah.
Things like the targets we have on the machines are set by the operators, not by the business. So we ask them what their output can be from that machine and what help they need to achieve that output. So we're involving them in the decision making and the thought processes on how we make the business more efficient.
Yeah, I think some of the most effective team meetings are the ones with more than one voice.
Yeah.
And I think what you've highlighted there is if it's a team meeting, getting people's input into how to make things better really helps and support team engagement. I'd like to touch on just a direct question to you. Of all the thousands of listeners that are out there listening to us today, there's bound to be one team leader, one business leader who is currently feeling that their team isn't performing the way they would like. What hints and tips do we have in order to supporting that individual if they have a team that is beginning to fall apart? How can they pull that back? How can they recover that? Sarah?
I guess one of the things we've developed as a service provider to help address that really is our people plan program. Okay. So in essence, what I found working with businesses over the years is being that the map customer journeys really well. So you think about what is the service or product you're selling, what's the experience your customer, what experience do you want them to have and how positive that's going to be. But actually mapping employee journey, the ones that are delivering that experience to your customers, is secondary to that. And actually, in my opinion, it should be the other way around. So to any business owner that I might support where they just feel that frustration in that the teams maybe aren't performing, is we normally map out that journey with them to say, let's just have a look at everything from what we've talked about, the socials, what your business stands for before someone even walks through the door, right through that whole journey to when someone chooses to walk out of that door. Where are your strengths? Where is it that the business is performing well? What processes and systems do you have to support your managers, your employees through that? And where are the weak points? Where is it that you may be dropping the ball a little bit? And quite often we maybe find that issues, for example, frustrations in performance might actually stem right back to the recruitment process in the first place. So I think one of the things, it's taking that step back, isn't it, of being able to move away from the coalface a little bit and just have a little bit of reflection to say, what works well for that journey and where are your pain points? And quite often that will give you a really clear direction of the things you can fix. And 9 times out of 10, there are some really quick and easy fixes that can make a really immediate difference to performance in a business. So that's where I'd start with them, is thinking about that employee journey.
Great. At TAB, we usually start with plenty of questions, but we're going to move straight into advice. Jake, advice on how a business leader can change that underperforming team?
I think with me, you've got to listen to the people, listen to the people within the business, and hopefully you've got an open culture where they can speak up. And also, I think you've got to be willing to change as well. And sometimes as small business owners, you don't get everything right. Sometimes it's hard to say, but we could be the problem sometimes. and sometimes it's looking in the mirror and going, okay, this is what I want to achieve, but are we doing the right thing? And so I think you've got to look at yourself. Are we doing the best we can do? And then listen to the organisation and then put it together, make it a group thing, bring everyone in together to make that decision. Simon just said then, everyone in Samson's is involved, and if everyone's involved, then generally you've got an engaged team.
Great stuff. Simon, a tip for a business leader whose team may not be performing?
I think when we've had issues with poor performance, it's usually related to one or two individuals in the business as opposed to the whole team. So I think it's recognising who it is that's causing the disruption, a bit like the question I asked earlier on about what do you do with somebody who isn't meeting the values and culture of the business, and the best way is to try and convert them and make them work the way you want them to work. But usually it usually involves an exit. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, if you've got somebody in the team that's disrupting the culture of the business. But for me, the key is training and coaching. So all of our senior people are offered training courses, whether that's an apprenticeship, a team leader apprenticeship, or they get individual one-to-one coaching with external executive coaches, and that enables them to talk about their issues and challenges with their own journey at work, and with a wider picture at work, with somebody who has got no vested interest in what they're talking about. And I think it's really important to provide people with that platform to be able to offload with somebody that isn't listening from a point of view of the business ear, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about psychological safety in the workplace and having that openness of conversation. I guess one of my final questions for you all as a panel is, as an individual, how do you go from being a people manager to a people leader? Your thoughts on that, sir?
I think that, that's a difficult transition, isn't it? Because obviously, for me, management is the nitty-gritty of making it happen. Leadership is inspiring your team to do that almost without you, so that, they're on that journey with you. And I think, what is crucial, as I've said all along, that today is investing in the managers in your business so that you are training them to become leaders. Because that is a trained skill. You might have leadership qualities, but understanding how to get the best out of your team. And I think, kind of going back to the answering, how do we do that with leaders, and also how do we address those performance issues within the team? For me, it's having really clear expectations of what's expected from everybody in the organisation, top down.
Yeah.
It's having the method to review performance that is a genuine two-way conversation, not I'm going to sit, Liam, and tell you what your performance is like this month. It's understanding, what are the barriers and blocks that are preventing people for being their best in the role. And then it goes back to that investing in your managers and leaders so that they understand how to use processes like that effectively so that they motivate and get the best from the team. But you're right, management and leadership are two very different things. Yeah. And you might have a great manager without them being able to be a great leader. So the transition on that, is all around their attitude, their mindset, but you investing in the training, support, mentoring to get them there so that they see the vision as well as the mechanics that sit behind it.
Jake, tell us a little bit about your transition from a people manager to a leader of people. What was your biggest learning from that journey?
I think it's more of listening a lot more. You're not in it making the decisions every single day. You're allowing the people you've brought in to help and support in that group and manage their own people, and take that step back and give that little bit of feedback and guidance more, and guide them in the way, instead of this is how we do it on an every single day and telling them how to do it. I think it's more around. I think I was trying to this year going into 2025 for us is we've grown very, very quickly over the last sort of 2 years, and speak to the team this about being entrepreneurs within our own business.
Yeah.
And bring your own managers on, and even all the way to the guys, and letting them help and support the business and grow. I think that's more leadership in terms of bringing everyone together and sort of taking them on the journey with you. Instead of, I think when we started the business, it was more around, right, jump on my back and I'm going to carry you with me, and this is where we want to go. I think when you get to a certain point, you now need to take the shackles off and take a step back and push people in the right direction.
It's interesting. I was having a really good conversation a while back with a good friend of mine, and we were talking about entrepreneurship. So having that entrepreneurial mindset, that flair, but doing that within a PAYE role.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting concept of about, as entrepreneurs ourselves, we always take calculated risks. We always have different options on. How can we create that within our own team, to help drive the business forward? A really interesting concept.
Do you think, though, you mentioned before, to me, that's about creating a safe space where people are comfortable in making mistakes.
Yeah.
So you have to relinquish a little bit of control as a leader in your business to allow people to learn by the mistakes, and not feel that they're going to be battered with a big stick if they slip up, but actually learn from that and move on. And I think that's one thing lots of business owners that might have started a business where they're very much in it and then have suddenly grown to have a bigger organisation. It's relinquishing that control to be comfortable in doing that and being okay when things don't go to plan.
There's nothing wrong with mistakes. Unless you're on a podcast, of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Unless,
it's a big step moving from a management role. As a business owner, when we first start out, we're very much in the business. We're neck deep. We're there day to day. We're opening up. We're closing at night. And then to take a step back and delegate all that to a team underneath you, and not to know what's going on every hour, every minute of the day is quite a big thing to do. It's not easy, but you have to learn to leadership is about learning to let go. And for me, the other important quality is emotional intelligence. You've got to be able to lead people. You've got to be able to understand the person that's sat in front of you, and be able to walk around in their shoes. So know what it's like to be an operator on the shop floor, know what it's like to be the accountant in the office, know what their role is all about and the challenges. So, and seeing it from their point of view, rather than just seeing it from your own. So that really is, for me, that's a really, really important quality. And that there's an element of that which is comes naturally, but we can teach people and coach people to be more emotionally intelligent and to see things with different eyes, rather than just their own. I think that's really important. And
it's accepting that feedback from your team without taking it personally. It's not a slight on you or your business if they come back and go, do you know what, I really don't like the way we do this, or I don't like how that works. It's encouraging them to go, well, great, what's your alternative? Give me a solution. Rather than seeing it as, well, this is my baby, my business. And that was the hard transition when I grew my team, definitely. Letting go of those reins and being comfortable in doing that.
100% the same for me. Is I never wanted a small business that was 100% led by me. I think I always wanted a bigger organisation who brought in the key people to help grow. And these some fantastic people in my business, and they're making us better every single day, even without me. And the point is, set that vision, set where you want to go, and let's all run with it together and bring in the people. You're bringing in these people to make a difference, and they generally want to do a great job.
And with your managers, you've got to give them the opportunity, the space, and the opportunity to grow and develop within your organisation. If you put shackles on them, there's only one way they're going to go, and that's out the door. They're going to go somewhere else. So you've got to keep providing an environment where they can grow in, as a person as well as the role that they're in. So that personal development has to be. But being a leader is allowing your people to develop and grow, and providing them with the space to do that.
I think it's also trying to be positive as well in a tough environment. It's tough to be a business owner, and sometimes it says even in big businesses as a CEO, it's a very lonely place. But if we can be positive and push and have that, we spoke about culture, but that culture of let's listen, let's act, and let's do what we're going to say. I think it's a real positive that when you bring them people in and like letting them grow in entrepreneurship, and I think it's a new word, but I think it's a huge going forward now. There's going to be a lot of these people in our businesses. If you let them do it and give them the opportunity and give them the tools to do it, that they will change the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're getting towards the end of episode 2. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming along today. But as we do in a tab board, I'm going to ask you a final question of your best takeaway. So from a podcast around people development, Simon, best takeaway?
One of the things I found most challenging in the tab board is giving a best takeaway from what we've discussed. But I think I think for me it's just the quality of the people we've had around the table for the first two podcasts, and there seems to be an awful lot more people out there running businesses that are much more engaged with the need for getting the culture right and the working environment right, and that's obviously been highlighted today.
Best takeaway?
I agree. It's difficult to do this all the time at TAB, but I think, well, the best takeaway for me is, looking at, even just with the panel today, we're all from very different businesses, yet as business owners and leaders, we share exactly the same challenges.
Absolutely.
And so, that whole concept of being able to share that and discuss it with fellow business owners like we've done today, I think just helps you share best practice and overcome those challenges. So for me, that's always the best takeaway of TAB, and it's certainly been the best takeaway this morning.
Thank you. Jake?
I think it's fantastic to talk about your own business and understand other people's viewpoints and business. And I think we all sort of share the same views as business owners, and I think for me today it's a really interesting conversation. More as a whole. I know that's a bit of a cop-out sort of answer, but I really enjoyed it, and it's nice to sort of delve into different people's
I think
minds.
There's other things we recognise as well with the conversation we had around the conversation we've had today is that we're just very ordinary people. We are stumbling over our words a little, trying to find the right ways of describing stuff, but we're not polished multimillionaire entrepreneurs. We're just very ordinary, everyday business people. And I think that comes through as well with the conversation.
And, you'll know this more than me. That's exactly what we're looking for at the Alternative Board, isn't it? Is business leaders who not only want to improve their business, but want to help and support each other. And that's the real ethos of what we do at the Alternative Board. For me, I think my best takeaway is, regardless of what we do, whether we are in manufacturing, whether we're in industrial supply, whether we're in consultancy, people still remain the most critical and essential part of our business. And long may that continue.
Absolutely.
Good.
Great. That's a wash up from us. I'd like to thank each and every one of you. Simon, Sarah, Jake, thank you for coming along. Please do share it on socials and look out for our next episodes of TABcast in the near future.